I was sitting there in Aiello's Pizza Parlor, a place where I'd gone pretty much all my life. And all of a sudden a woman started screaming, and they had heard that her brother had been killed and died on the operating room table. The horror of that day still really, really haunts me on a lot of levels, especially when you read about the profile of the shooter. It was the classic going postal type profile. A down on the luck guy working non-union as a truck driver, listening to right-wing talk radio the whole time, having this deep sense of resentment over a lot of the difficult stuff he had gone through in his own life, and having mental health issues that kicked it off. They have all these murals over here now that are from people from all over. This has been closed now. The synagogue has been closed since the shooting occurred about a year and a half ago. They still have to renovate it. There's over 400 bullet holes in the synagogue. That's a lot of work that's going to have to be done for it to be reopened. And it's been a long process of what is this going to look like as a congregation space after that. There were 3 congregations here. There's a part of us, some of us, I think, who are very enthusiastic about memorializing it. As a reporter, as someone who's somewhat of a historian in some ways, I obviously see this as a point of strength, because in the midst of all that terrible stuff that morning, I'll never forget how people were talking in the streets about the need to stand up for immigrants' rights. We had been targeted because of our support for immigrants' rights as Jews. So that day in the street here in the neighborhood was a moment of pride for a lot of us. And now it's overwhelming sometimes. I come by here a lot on the bus, walk by here to see this place and to see what it will become, what the next chapter is, and to think about the horror that was done there when 11 people were killed. Certainly that motivates me in fighting for immigrants' rights. I've spent most of my career covering how undocumented workers got killed on the job, and those have affected me deeply. But I was an undocumented construction worker. A day like today could have been me, could have been people we knew, and there were connections to many people we did know there. So, 69 coming through, that's a bus I would take a lot to get back to my parents' house. So it was a very familiar spot to me. And, I've seen all kind of terrible death in the workplace as well as covering the drug war in Brazil. But there was nothing quite like the feeling of that day of seeing a place that you think is safe hit like that. It just ripped open a huge wound, a wound that's still there when you think about all the folks that died that day. Yeah, this is the bus right here, like the 69. Good old bus. A lot of people come and visit me in Pittsburgh, and I always say, hey, do you want to come here? Because I think a lot of us are proud of how we pushed back as a community that day. And how some of us came open out heavily for immigrants' rights in terms of the marches we had in resulting days. But for some people, they want to forget about this. But for me, it's part of my daily life. I walk by it, drive by it all the time. Think about it almost every time when I come by, and you just can't forget that kind of day. It stays with you. So some of these are from people at Marjorie Stone Douglas, Parkland. The 11 dead. But yeah, we used to catch the bus right there. Now it's got a whole different memory for me. But that's what, you got to hold on to as a reporter. There's a lot of workers I've buried in my life whose obituaries I've written of tragic accidents they got killed in. And you got to think of them the next time you get into a fight. And how do you memorialize it? How do you turn it into art? Because art's the only thing we have left after we die. And so I think there's a lot of questions I push myself, especially on immigration issues, because of what happened here. And if we don't do something on immigration, we have to do something big. I mean, these folks, they deserve to all be here, and they deserve to be citizens. And to think that 11 people had to give their lives for that here on a Saturday morning. And it was like this. It was drizzling. It was so cold. I didn't know how cold it was, and I couldn't find my jacket, and it was just terrible. Light rain. Wash away the dead.